What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a look at the 2025 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series driver lineup. I'm going to go through all the full-time entries and the part-time entries that have been confirmed for 2025. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start by talking about the one truck for Trion Garage. This truck will be an all-star truck for the team in 2025, split by Brent Cruz, Brandon Jones, William Swalch, and Lawless Allen. Brent Cruz will drive the most starts for the team with around 8 or 9 starts this year. I believe Brandon Jones has around 6 or 7 starts scheduled for the year. William Swalch is only going to run around 2 to 3 starts this year, and Lawless Allen will make a couple starts in the truck throughout the 2025 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series year and season. Up next, we're talking about the 02 truck for Youngs Motorsports. This will be driven by Nathan Brown, who will make 15 starts with the 02 team in 2025. Nathan Burr made select starts in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with DGM Racing in the number 92 car, and also made a few select starts, I believe, with Youngs Motorsports as well. Nathan's got a lot of potential, and I think he could have a very solid year with this team in 2025. Up next, we're talking about the 2 truck for the Ram Brothers Racing. The number 2 from Rev Racing has switched over to Ram for 2025. They will run full-time this year, with Cody Dennison will run 8 or 9 Truck Series races with the team, and Tyler Tomasi will make 2 Craftsman Truck Series starts in the number 2, with more drivers to be announced throughout the rest of the year. I do think the 2 truck, though, will struggle throughout 2025. Up next, up with the 04 truck for Roper Racing. I do expect this team will show up in 2025. I think Marco Andretti will probably be back in this truck throughout the 2025 season. Of course, he'll be focused on running the Indy 500 with Andretti Global this year. But I think Marco Andretti will get back behind the wheel of this truck, and maybe some drivers in the lower series like Avar Scott could get starts in this truck in 2025. Up next up with the Ford truck for Hettinger Racing. Well, there's been no official driver announced for the Ford team. They are expected to show up at least on a part-time basis in 2025. I think it's very likely that Brett Moffitt will be back with this team through 2025. I think it would make the most sense. Brett Moffitt is someone who could build a program up pretty quickly, and I think Brett Moffitt is the most likely driver to get behind the wheel. We're waiting for them to reveal their official schedule, but they for sure will be back in 2025. Up next, up with the 5 truck for Trion Garage. This will be driven by Tony Breidinger, who replaces Dean Thompson, who moves up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Sam Hunt Racing this year. Tony Breidinger is bringing a lot of sponsorship and funding, and I think she could have a very interesting season in 2025. She will fight for the Rookie of the Year honors. I'm not sure how she is going to perform in the 2025 year, but she's got Raising Cane's coming on with her and a couple big brands. We'll see what she can do with the team in 2025. Up next, talk about the 6 car for Norm Benning Racing. While there's been no official announcement of Norm Benning's plans at this time, we do expect that Norm Benning will probably make a few Craftsman Truck Series starts in 2025. I wouldn't be surprised if he runs Daytona. He could run some other races, maybe down the road like Talladega like he did last year. And I think Norm Benning will be back in the 2025 year with this organization once again in 2025. Up next, we're talking about the 07 truck for Spire Motorsports. Yes, Spire Motorsports will have 4 Craftsman Truck Series teams in 2025, with the 07 truck being a part-time team this year. It was announced earlier this week that Michael McDowell will drive the 07 truck at Daytona International Speedway, the first time I believe he's ran the Craftsman Truck Series since 2009 or 2010. I also think that Carson Osabar and Brendan Butterbean Queen might also make starts in the 07 this year. I think McDowell will make 1 or 2. Osabar, who's been rumored to make some starts, I think he'll get behind the wheel, and I think you'll see Brendan Butterbean Queen as well. Up next, up with the 7 truck for Spire Motorsports. This will be a full-time Spire Motorsports entry for 2025. It was confirmed earlier this week as well that Justin Haley will drive the 7 truck at Daytona International Speedway. It will be very likely that Kyle Busch will make 5 Craftsman Truck Series starts with the number 7 truck this year as well. Sammy Smith, who most recently did testing with the program at Rockingham, I do think he'll be behind the wheel of this truck. And I expect Corey Day also, which we already know is confirmed, he'll make 8 or 9 Craftsman Truck Series starts with this team in 2025. I also would not be surprised if we see people like Shane Van Gisbergen or Connor Zillich or someone in one of these teams as well, maybe along with Ross Chastain this year. Up next, up with the 9 truck for CR7 Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Grant Enfinger. Grant Enfinger in 2024 had a very, very solid season. He showed a lot of promise and a lot of potential throughout 2024. He won 2 of the final 3 or 4 races this year. I look for this team to build up a lot of pace and speed. I think it will also be very likely that Grant Enfinger will be able to make the playoffs this year with the CR7 Motorsports organization in 2025. Up next, we're talking about the 10 truck for Jennifer Jo Cobb Racing. Yes, I do expect that this team will also be back in 2025 with no surprise Jennifer Jo Cobb. I don't think she's going to run a ton of races this year. She'll probably run Daytona. I would think her home track at Kansas Speedway is the other most likely track she'll end up entering in 2025. She'll probably struggle for pace and speed throughout the year in the races that she does end up driving, but I do expect her to be back in the Craftsman Truck Series this year. Up next, I'll have the 11 truck for Trion Garage. This will once again be driven by Corey Heim. Corey Heim last year had a dream season. He picked up 6 wins last year, but unfortunately finished second overall in the championship. He's looking for his first championship in his 3rd try. He's been the fastest truck the last couple years consistently, though we did see Christian Eckes be a little bit more consistent last year. But I do think that Corey Heim, who truly has ambitions to go NASCAR Cup Series racing once again, I think that he'll be a major factor throughout 2025 for the championship. I think he's going to be the guy to beat this year, and I look for him to be a major threat and serious contender for the championship in 2025. Up next, how about the 13 truck for ThorSport Racing? This will once again be driven by Jake Garcia. Jake Garcia had a pretty bad season overall in 2024. He struggled for most of the year, only had 2 top 10s, didn't do much better than Haley Deegan in 2024, and really didn't have the pace and speed. He's looking for a resurgent season in 2025. I think Jake does have a lot of potential. Hopefully Jake Garcia can step up to the plate and run a lot better in the 2025 Craftsman Truck Series season. Up next, up with the 14 truck for Trey Hutchins Racing. While nothing's been formally announced, I do expect that this program will be back in 2025. Trey Hutchins made his select starts last year, ran at Martinsville, I believe, and also ran at Kansas, and I think he also ran another race at the end of the year last year. This team usually doesn't have the pace and speed to contend on a week-by-week basis, but they always show up to the track. I think they definitely will be back in 2025. Up next, I have the 15 truck for Trion Garage. This will once again be driven by Tanner Gray. Tanner Gray's coming off of having an up and down year in 2024. He did not make the playoffs last year, and he's really kind of struggled in the Craftsman Truck Series over the last couple of years as well. We really need to start seeing a little bit of improvement in performance from Tanner Gray because we got his brother, of course, moving up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series full-time with Joe Gibbs Racing this year. I think he's going to have a new crew chief this year as well. He did some reshuffling with the Trion Garage team. We'll see what he can do and see if he can perform a Trion and have a really strong year with the team in 2025. Up next, up the 16 truck for Tori Racing. Well, there's nothing been officially announced with the Tori. I do expect that this program will be back on a part-time basis in 2025. If they do return, I think Landon Lewis is a very likely option to get behind the wheel, but I wouldn't rule out Eric Almirola as well. He was supposed to run for this team, of course, at North Wilkesboro. Unfortunately, they failed to qualify because they didn't have enough owners points to make the event in the show. I think that Eric Almirola could get behind the wheel, and I do expect a Tori to be back in the Truck Series once again this season. Up next, up with the 17 truck for Trion Garage. This will be driven by Gio Ruggiero, who moves up to the NASCAR Truck Series full-time this year. Gio Ruggiero has a ton of promise and a ton of potential. I think he's going to be maybe the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year. Last year in ARCA, he did exceptional. He had some really strong performances and was one of the few guys who could keep up with William Sawalch and Connor Zilisch last year in ARCA. I think he will be a pretty big threat to maybe get a couple wins throughout the year and season. And I do think that the pace and speed will be there for the number 17 team as Gio Ruggiero looks to win his first ever NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series title in his rookie season, which hasn't been done in a very long time. We'll see what he does with this team later this year. Up next, up at the 18 truck for McAnally-Hilgemann Racing. This will once again be driven by Tyler Ankrum. Tyler Ankrum is coming off of having a pretty good career resurgence last year. He was strong early in the year last year, was one of the biggest threats to win the championship early in the season, but unfortunately they declined in the second half of the year and got eliminated in the round of 8. I think this 18 team could be a sleeper pick to win the championship this year. I think Tyler Ankrum does have a lot of promise and a lot of potential, and I think there's a good opportunity for him to definitely contend this season. We'll see what Tyler Ankrum can do, and we'll see if he can take the number 18 truck to victory lane as he looks to be a threat and serious contender in 2025. Up next, up with the 19 truck for McAnally-Hilgemann Racing. This will be driven by Daniel Hemrick, who joins the Truck Series and replaces Christian Eckes and moves up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Colleague Racing. Daniel Hemrick is coming off having an okay season in the NASCAR Cup Series. He's going to a new team this year. He will have a new crew chief as well as Josh Graham from Row Motorsports will be the crew chief for this team this season. I think Dale Hemrick is looking for a career year at this point in the Truck Series, looking to win multiple races and victories, so maybe down the road he can get back up to the NASCAR Cup Series. though I do think his years are running out very quickly. He needs to perform very good, so he does have that potential maybe down the road to move back up to NASCAR Cup Series competition in a good team. Up next, how about the 20 truck for Youngs Motorsports? We officially got announced that Stephen Parsons will be driving this truck in 2025 on a part-time basis. Stephen last year drove for Henderson Motorsports in the Craftsman Truck Series, along with spotting last season for Corey LaJoie and Justin Haley. He's got an opportunity to perform well. He, I think, is a very talented race car driver, does have a lot of potential. He did get in some beef with Lane Riggs in the second half of the season. We'll see what Stephen Parsons can do with the Youngs Motorsports organization in the 2025 season. Up next, how about the 21 truck for Friesen Motorsports? Well, there's been no official announcement for this program. I do expect this team to be back with Mason Maggio. Mason Maggio made a couple starts with this team last year, and they had a couple decent performances in the second half of this season. Well, yes, the owner of the team, Scott Ossing, will be focused on helping Joey Gase Motorsports grow with the money he's bringing into the program. I do expect this team to be officially back in 2025 once again. Up next, up with the 22 truck for the Rain Brothers Racing organization. This team will be full-time in 2025, and Keith McGee has been confirmed for at least 2 Craftsman Truck Series races with this team this year. I think Keith McGee could be someone that I think is going to struggle, unfortunately. He's been usually off the pace, and I just don't see this team really performing in 2025 that much. The rest of the lineup has not been confirmed for the 22 truck this year, but I would lean toward him maybe getting some opportunities to run more races than just the 2 he has already announced. Up next, up with the 26 truck for Rackley Racing. We've got a driver change, and we've also got a number change for the year, as the 25 has been rebranded to the number 26 for this season. And Dawson Sutton, who is the son of Curtis Sutton, will be the driver full-time this year. Dawson Sutton, I think, is someone that could be a sleeper to make the playoffs this year. He showed a lot of promise racing locally in Nashville, and he had some decent runs this past year in the Truck Series. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can do better than Ty Dillon, who really struggled last year in this truck. See if he can be similar to Matt DiBenedetto, who ran quite well in this truck. We'll see what Dawson Sutton can do with the 26 team in the 2025 year. Up next, how about the 28 truck for Doza Racing, FDNY Racing. This will once again be driven by Brian Doza, who will make some select starts in the Craftsman Truck Series, including at Daytona International Speedway. This team is going to run around 5 to 6 races at this moment. They're looking to run more funding and sponsorship coming down the road. They're back for the year. I do think they're going to struggle on pace and speed, but they will be back this year in the Craftsman Truck Series in 2025. Up next, up with the 33 truck for Rain Brothers. This will be driven by Frankie Muniz, who will join the team full-time in 2025. Now, last year was a very disappointing season for Frankie Muniz. He lost his ride partway through the year with Joey Gase Motorsports, and there just wasn't any pace and speed for Frankie when he was behind the wheel. He's looking for a little bit of a resurgent year and having a much better season, but I'm not sure how that's going to be with the organization in 2025. We'll see how the team does end up performing this year, and we'll see if Frankie can run well, but honestly, I'm not sure, especially after the test that took place earlier this week. Up next, how about the 34 truck for Front Row Motorsports? Yes, Front Row Motorsports will expand to a 2-truck operation in 2025, and Lane Riggs moves from the 38 truck to the 34 truck in 2025. The Lane will still have the same crew chief, and everyone from the 38 has been migrated over to the 34. Lane Riggs started off on not the best note, but he ended the year on a really strong note, and I think Lane Riggs could be a sleeper to win the championship this season. I think this team is going to be very, very competitive throughout 2025. I think he at least gets 2 to 3 wins this year, and I think it's very likely that Lane Riggs will have the opportunity and shot to make the championship 4 in the 2025 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series season. Up next, up with the 38 truck for Front Row Motorsports. This will be driven by Chandler Smith, who moves down from Joe Gibbs Racing in NASCAR Xfinity Series to Front Row Motorsports in 2025, with Joe Leonard being the crew chief. Chandler Smith is coming off having a really good year in NASCAR Xfinity Series competition. Unfortunately, because of sponsorship issues, he lost his ride in Xfinity. I think Chandler Smith is going to be one of the favorites to win the championship this year. He is going to be in a super competitive truck. The 38 truck was really strong last year in 2024, and I look for him to be a Final Four contender this year and get multiple victories and contend for the title. I think it's going to be interesting to see if maybe down the road he moves back up the Cup, but nonetheless, he will be with this program in 2025. I look for him to be a major factor. Up next, how about the 41 truck for Muniz Motorsports? This will be mostly a full-time truck in 2025, and they confirmed that Matt Gold, Ross Chastain, and Bailey Curry will be the drivers behind the wheel of this truck. I think Ross Chastain has a chance and opportunity to win, maybe Bailey Curry as well. It's disappointing Bailey Curry's not full-time with this program in 2025, but at least he does have a part-time opportunity for the season. And Matt Gold, who's the son of Phil Gold, who's a crew chief for Caden Honeycutt this season. It'll be interesting to see how this team can perform in 2025. Up next, up with the 42 truck for Muniz Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Matt Mills. Matt Mills had a very much up and down year in 2024. He did have some issues and got into, unfortunately, a really bad crash that had issues at Homestead where he got dumped by Connor Jones. The performance, though, was just not there this past year. He didn't have the pace and speed, and I really hope he can improve because I think Muniz did take a step backwards as an organization as a whole last year. They'll be looking to turn the corner around and run a lot better in the 2025 season as Matt Mills looks for a little bit of a resurgence and maybe has a chance to make the playoffs in 2025. Up next, how about the 44 truck for Muniz Motorsports? This will be driven by Christian Rose, who moves up from the ARCA series and will go full-time with this team this year. Christian Rose is certainly interesting. I'm not quite sure how I think he's going to perform in 2025. Christian kind of struggled in ARCA with the organization known as AM Racing last year in the number 30 car, and I'm just not sure how this team is really going to, or the 22, I should say. I just don't know how he is going to do in 2025. Maybe he can have a really strong year in season, but I'm not really sure if Christian Rose will be a big factor in 2025. Up next, how about the 45 truck for Muniz Motorsports? This will be driven by Caden Honeycutt, who joins the team full-time this year. Now, unlike Christian Rose, I have a lot of expectations for Caden Honeycutt this season. I think Caden is going to be a major factor for the championship this season. I think Caden had some really strong performances and really great runs with Muniz Motorsports last year. There were a couple races where he should have won last season, and I think that he will be a major factor to be a contender to win some races in 2025. He's also got Phil Gold, who's helped drivers like Carson Osbar and Ross Chastain make their name in these series. I think there's a good chance he will definitely make his name in the truck series full-time in 2025. Up next, up with the 52 truck for Halmer Friesen Racing. This will once again be driven by Stewart Friesen. There were some slight questions about the future of this program for 2025 in a silly season department, but we got confirmation that they will be back this year. I do think that Stewart Friesen will be a playoff contender this year, though I'm not sure if this team can really step up to the plate and be a championship contender. They haven't been championship contenders since 2019. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think, however, that Stewart Friesen will be a playoff contender, and I think there's a good chance he will definitely make the playoffs this year with Halmer Friesen in 2025. Up next, how about the 56 truck for Hill Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Timmy Hill. Now, last year, this team really struggled. They were very inconsistent throughout the year, and they just didn't have the pace and speed on the track a lot of the season. They've got good sponsorship with them, so maybe that sponsorship money can really help them in 2025, but I'm not sure if they will perform this year. We'll see what he can do with his own team once again. Up next, how about the 66 truck for ThorSport Racing? This truck is expected to be back in 2025. Originally, Connor Jones is going to be the driver. However, it sounds like Connor Jones may no longer have a seat with this team, which I think is the best thing you can do if you're ThorSport Racing. Distance yourself from that driver. Luke Fenhouse, who did a test very recently with ThorSport Racing, I would expect to make some starts in this truck this year. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a Joey Logano coming down and running a few races, especially with the Triple Truck Challenge now being open for Cup guys. Maybe some other Cup guys could come down and race with this team in 2025. Do I think Luke Fenhouse will make some starts with this program? Up next, how about the 67 truck for the organization known as Spencer Boyd's team? This will be driven by Ryan Relay, who will only make 3 starts with this team in 2025. I do think Ryan Relay is going to be an interesting choice to put behind the wheel of the number 67 truck. I don't know if I think he's going to really set the world on fire in 2025 because his team really struggled last year. The 76 truck didn't really have the pace and speed last year. I don't expect the same thing for Ryan Relay in the 3 races he makes this season. Up next, how about the 71 truck for Spire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Raja Karuf. Now, Raja Karuf will have a new crew chief this year, with Boney and Manny moving from the number 2 truck to the 71 truck this year. Raja had a breakout season last year, picking up his first career truck win at Las Vegas Motor Speedway and making it to the round of 8. I think Raja will be a legitimate championship contender this season. I think the 71 team showed a lot of promise and a lot of potential, and I look for the same speed they had last year to really come into play in 2025. I'm expecting a great season from Raja. I think it's going to be a really good year this year, and I think with Raja also likely making starts in Xfinity with Junior Motorsports this year, I think he will do really good with Spire Motorsports in the 2025 year and season. Up next, how about the 75 truck for Henderson Motorsports? They will be back in 2025, and Parker Klurman is going to be behind the wheel of this truck. Parker, who of course retired from full-time racing last year, has scaled back as he'll focus on being a commentator in the NASCAR Xfinity Series on the CW. I think Parker is going to be a legit contender for wins at times this year. He was very good with this team the last couple of years when he's been behind the wheel, and I think that he'll do really strong with this program in 2025. They're going to run Daytona, and they're going to run a ton of other races throughout the 2025 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series season. Up next, how about the 76 truck? This will once again be driven by Spencer Boyd. Spencer Boyd last year in this team showed slight growth throughout 2025, the faction team. They showed some promise. They made a crew chief change, bringing Mike Hillman Jr. into the team, and the 76 team really showed a little bit of progress throughout the season. I do think the 76 team will show some good stuff this year, maybe hopefully, though Spencer Boyd I think should focus more on the ownership side of things and maybe bring a younger driver into the program. We'll see what Spencer Boyd can do with the number 76 truck once again in 2025. Up next, how about the 77 truck for Spire Motorsports? This will be driven by Andres Perez, who replaces Chase Purdy, who is no longer in NASCAR at the moment. Andres Perez won the ARCA Championship last year, and I gotta say that Andres Perez, while yes, he didn't win a race at all in ARCA the last couple of years, I think he's got a lot of talent. He got a top 10 in last year with Spire Motorsports in his debut, finishing 9th at Gateway, and he also didn't run that great with Roper Racing, but I do think that Andres Perez is going to have some solid pace and strong speed this year, and I think he will be a driver that could absolutely be a borderline playoff contender with this team in 2025. Up next, how about the 81 truck for McAnally-Hilgemann Racing? This will be driven by Connor Mosack. This is quintessentially the 43 team that Daniel Dye had last season, as Blake Bainbridge will be the crew chief of this truck. Connor Mosack has improved as a driver on ovals. He's going to be someone that's going to be really strong in the 3 or 4 road courses we have next year, but I think he got better on ovals in 2024, and I think he will improve on those in 2025, and I think he will be a driver that will be in the conversation to make the playoffs this year. We'll see what Connor Mosack can do as he looks to run really strong with this team in 2025 once again. Up next, how about the 88 truck for ThorSport Racing? This will once again be driven by Matt Crafton. Matt Crafton is starting to decline in performance. He's starting to get a little bit older, and last year was probably the worst seasons he's had in a very, very long time. They made a crew chief change going into the year. Josh Haskin, I believe, is going to be the crew chief for this team this year. I'm just not sure how much longer Matt Crafton is going to race in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series in his career. This could be his final year in truck competition, but he also could come back in 2026, though at this point I think this could very much be his final year in Craftsman Truck Series competition, as he could definitely retire at the end of this season. Up next, how about the 90 truck for Carroll Motorsports? This team I do expect to be back in 2025 with Justin Carroll behind the wheel. I think that Justin Carroll is probably going to make a race or two. They're not going to have generally the pace and speed to be up front on a week-by-week basis, and I think that they're just going to struggle on consistency of making the field. Maybe they can prove me wrong and they actually can make the field with some good speed, but I think that Justin Carroll will definitely struggle to make races in the 2025 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series year and season. Up next, how about the 91 truck for McAnally-Hilgemann Racing? This will be driven by Jack Wood, who will be full-time with this program in 2025. Jack Wood struggled in the truck series last year. I don't even think he scored a single top 10 last year in the races that he ran, and yet he is getting promotion with this team. I think Jack Wood is going to be someone that's going to struggle in this equipment. I think he's not going to have a great season with this team. Maybe he could prove me wrong and actually run really good, but I'm just not expecting much from Jack Wood in 2025. We'll see what he can do this year and see if Jack Wood can have the pace and speed to be a factor in serious contender to maybe somehow, in some crazy way, make the playoffs in the 2025 NASCAR Craftsman Truck season. Up next, how about the 98 truck for ThorSport Racing? This will once again be driven by Ty Majeski. Ty Majeski is coming off of winning the Craftsman Truck Series Championship last year and picking up 3 wins en route to his championship. Ty Majeski is going to be one of the favorites for the title this year. He's really good on the flatter ovals, really good on pretty much every type of track, including super speedways, it seems like at this point. And with Phoenix still being the season finale, you know he's going to be the guy to watch out for and the guy that you can absolutely count on throughout the year. I think it's going to be a strong season for this program, and I think the 98 team, which is not making any changes this year, I think it's going to be a solid season for him once again in 2025 as he looks to win back-to-back championships. And finally, let's talk about the 99 truck for ThorSport Racing. This will once again be driven by Ben Rose, who has Rich Lucius as his crew chief once again. Ben Rose had a disappointing season last year. Yes, he made the playoffs, but ThorSport Racing outside of Ty Majeski took major steps backwards. I really think Ben Rose will have a little bit of an improvement here. You go through history. He won the championship in 21 and won the championship in 2023. If we're counting our heads, I think he's got a chance to win the championship in 2025. I think Rose will have a good opportunity to win a race this year, and I think it's very likely also that he could make the playoffs. So I don't think I had him making the playoffs at this point, but I think Ben Rose will have a solid pace and speed. We'll see if he can turn it around in 2025. So, that is going to be it for the 2025 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series driver lineup video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. How do you think the teams are going to perform? Who thinks the favorite will win the championship? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later today on the channel, you're going to see the paint scan video for the 2025 Cookout Clash. You're also going to see reactions to the heat races that are going to take place. Then tomorrow on the channel, you're going to see an extra look at the NASCAR Xfinity Series driver lineup, and you're also going to see the race review for the Cookout Clash as well. And then on Monday, there'll be 2 news videos most likely dropping on the channel. And then, of course, on Tuesday, we'll likely be doing some other content along with doing some other types of videos as we get closer to the start of the year and season, as we're less than 2 weeks away, about 2 weeks now, from the Daytona 500. We've got content of people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Chandler Smith, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Sawalch, all that good stuff. Junior Motorsports, lawsuit with Michael Jordan, 2311. We'll be talking about all that on the channel. Frankie Muniz, all that good stuff. Matt DiBenedetto too. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.